We've got just what you need right here at Femi Wash Media. Call it the Midas Touch, and you wouldn't be wrong. Let us record, produce, mix, and master your audio like nobody does. Reach us on our contact today for the best quality job.
What keeps the heartbeat of a community alive? Is it the courage to create, the power to connect, the vision to transform? Well, it's all of these and more. It's a symphony of ideas, innovation, and industry. But where do these stories come alive? It's right here on The Isle, 104.9 FM, the station where dreams meet action and growth finds its voice. The Isle, 104.9. Business, economy, development. Stay tuned.
Africa Development Studies Center, ADSC. We are committed to driving sustainable growth and development across Africa through innovative training and research. Our mission: empowering leaders, policymakers, and professionals with the tools they need to create lasting change. With customized training, dynamic research programs, and study exchanges on leadership, management, and other critical development topics, ADSC offers a platform for exchanging cutting-edge ideas and global best practices. We provide comprehensive services in research and consultancy, capacity building and training, education programs, publishing, and knowledge sharing. Our esteemed faculty, composed of seasoned experts and researchers, ensures a learning experience that is insightful and practical. We specialize in policy development, implementation strategies, monitoring, and evaluation. At ADSC, learning is engaging and enjoyable. Our unique methodology includes talks, interactive exercises, games, video screenings, and lively seminar discussions, all in a comfortable and friendly environment. Ready to make an impact? For more information, email us at info@adstudycenter.com or call +234 912 439 2362. Visit us today at www.adstudycenter.com to explore our programs and upcoming events. Africa Development Studies Center, rethinking development for Africa.
Known as the father of African literature, Chinua Achebe was born on the 16th of November 1930 in Ogidi, now Anambra State, eastern Nigeria. He was born to Isaiah Okafor Achebe, a teacher and an evangelist, and Janet Anenichi Ilegunam, a vegetable farmer. Achebe has reshaped the global understanding of African identity through the power of storytelling. Raised during the twilight of colonial rule, Achebe's education was steeped in both Igbo tradition and the Western values of post-colonial Christianity. As a student at the University of Ibadan, he became fiercely critical of how Africa was portrayed in Western literature. Achebe believed that Western literature often painted Africa as a dark and primitive continent, but he sought to tell the African people's lens. In 1958, Achebe's groundbreaking novel Things Fall Apart shattered colonial narratives through the tragic story of Okonkwo, an Igbo warrior. Achebe illuminated the complexities of African culture and the devastating effects of European colonization. Things Fall Apart became more than just a novel. It became a symbol of African resistance against the oppressive narratives of colonialism. Achebe was not just a writer. He was a passionate advocate for African self-determination, and his political activism made him a critical voice in the post-colonial era. Even after a life marked by personal and political struggles, including a car accident that left him partially paralyzed, Achebe continued to inspire. He taught at Bard College and later Brown University, where his influence reached new generations of writers and thinkers. He was married to Christiana Chinwe Okoli and they had 4 children. Sadly, he died in March 2013 at the age of 82. Chinua Achebe's legacy endures in his novels, his essays, and in the countless voices of African writers who follow in his footsteps. He gave us a voice, a story, and a vision of Africa that is ours to share.
Well, you already know my name is Steve Omojafor, and my middle name is Bamidele. That was the name that my parents gave me at birth, because it was like they regarded themselves as not Lagosians. It is Providence that brought them into Lagos, and I then happened to be born here at Odo Street in Obalende. And in fact, we didn't go to Mercy Hospital then. There was a little home along Odo Street run by a very experienced nurse, Mama Nurse, that's what So I was born in that little place and grew up from there. Like I said, my middle name is Bamidele. My parents probably said, well, we have had you here, but this is not home. As at that time, you will go home with us. No problem. So I started off at St. Matthias Catholic Primary School on Louis Street. And I was in St. Matthias from 1953 till 1960, when we finished with our primary school leaving certificate. Then from there, an extra year at Holy Cross School. We needed that extra, they call it prep class. Prepare yourself to go to the secondary school. And from Holy Cross, for 1 year, I moved on to St. Gregory's College, Lagos. Now, growing up in Lagos was one of the best things that happened to us then. Life was good, life was easy, life was safe, life was like everything that a young man could aspire to. We went to school with Scholars Bus, which was virtually provided for free. When Scholars Bus was not available, it was fun walking from Obalende, firstly to St. Matthias, and then from there to St. Gregory's College. Life was good, life was safe. You could go out any time of the day. You could play from house to house. Parents knew each other very well. And so, in fact, when you were late somewhere on your street or in your neighborhood, you could sleep there because they would send a message to your home that Dele is here, so don't bother. The next morning you wake up, have your bath, have breakfast, return to your home. There was this community life that we all lived. Parents could discipline children of their friends, okay? Not like these days, you dare not touch any other child. The parents will come and, do a battle with you. That I didn't send my child to you to be flogged or to be beaten. So it was a very beautiful life. So went to St. Matthias, went to St. Gregory's College, and then from there to University of Lagos. We were brothers keepers. School was fun. Teachers were all there just to teach you. There was no messing around. There weren't any bad habits that people could be developing along the line, you know. So that was my life growing up. So we were all walking through Balinde to Lafiaji, to Campus Square, to Tokunbo, Okekpokpo, you know. So we were children of the neighborhood. We were children of the area. So I'm never ashamed to say I'm an area boy in Lafiaji, you know. Today it has become a taboo, but then we were proud of our origin. We were proud of our place of birth, and we were proud growing up in the neighborhood. So today, still believe me, I get up on some Fridays, I just go to Lafiaji, I stay with the guys. Okay, not all of us were fortunate enough to go through the system. Okay, so those who, in quote, we left behind, we still, a lot of the time, we still talk to them. We still relate to them when there are problems that we could fix. You know, we help out. Because, I mean, it wasn't their fortune to be able to have gone. I know some dropped out, you know, on their own volition. But generally, we all like the idea of going to school, but some couldn't make it. But we still relate to them. We are still friends. So I'm not surprised I leave Holy Cross Cathedral and I just hear people call me my names. And I know these people are those who knew me when we were growing up. Yeah. Okay. Let me start by saying that even at secondary school, I read a lot. I was interested in the newspapers. And a lot of the time, I read something, there was always this beautiful column of letters to the editor. So anything that I read that I liked, I sit down, 2-3 paragraphs letter to the editor to compliment what they've done, to criticize what I didn't like, and these things were published. And I liked it, okay? You open the papers and you just see, contributed by Steve Omojafo, or some will call me Bamidele Omojafo. So that kept me getting interested in the media. So when I left secondary school, after higher school, I would just pay a visit to Daily Times, which was in Tinubu, Kakawa Street. I just pay a visit there, you know, and I got talking to people. They would take me to the newsroom, you know. They would just show me how newspapers are produced and all that. That ignited my interest. So when I left higher school, mass communication was what God to me. I know that my uncle, you are not doing accountancy, you are not doing engineering, you're not doing medicine. You want to go and become a newspaper boy? I said, yes, this is where my interests lie. So I got admitted to Lagos University. I studied mass communication there. And while I was there, I developed a column in Lagos Weekend of those days. Every Friday I was contributing. And I was writing under the name of Akibodilon. Now, Akibodilon itself is a name that I picked up in a drama group. Because we had a drama group that we produced all kinds of little plays here and there. at Jekirandu Hall, So one of the roles I played was Akimbodilon. So when I started writing my columns in Daily Times and Lagos Weekend, I just used that pen name, Akimbodilon. So I did the program and I started writing for Daily Times campus news, things that happened during elections, battle between the male and female, problems with the tutors and everything. So it became a very regular program. In fact, I inherited the program from late Golabo Ogusawo, who was my boss in the Daily Times. So I did that program for 3 years. It became very popular. It got to a point, Vice Chancellor would call me to say, there's a little thing going on in the university. I hope you have covered it for your paper. And I said, I'm not even employed there. I'm just writing, So I left University of Lagos, had all kinds of jobs that one could do, but I headed for Daily Times because I just had developed a path for myself, and that is journalism. Okay. So while in the Daily Times, worked with the Lagos Weekend, went to Daily Times proper and worked there. I was a columnist, I was a sub-editor, and also a reporter. Combined everything. So that was where my interest grew, and it was very painful when I had to leave the Daily Times organization. And what did I go to? Lintas advertising. When I walked into Lintas, and I said to the chairman managing director, and I said, I want a job. I said, just like that? I said, yes, sir. Then it was easy to communicate with people. We're not too many, so they listen to you. So he said, what are you doing now? I said, I'm a sub-editor at the Daily Times. So why are you coming to advertising? I want to broaden my space. I want to broaden my experiences. It took about 3 months, and I got a job in Lintas. And I remember Alhaji Babatunde Joseph, when I was going to leave, said, look, Steve, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Lintas. I said, well, we do the same thing. They package programs commercially. Here we do our papers and we go sell, So I said, okay, sir, let me just go gather some experience at Lintas. And Lintas and Daily Times were just 5 minutes walk from each other. And I said, sir, if the editor needs me for anything, trust me, I will spend my time and money, do write-ups for Daily Times. So I was like working in advertising and still writing for the Daily Times. So that was my life. From Lintas, we set up our own company known as Roosevelt Advertising Limited. And Roosevelt, was formed by 3 partners, two friends of mine. 3 of us were at Lagos University at the same mass comm department. So we came out, and I left Daily Times to set up Roosevelt. One of my partners left Cadbury to join us, and Akodusi left Admark, another advertising company. So 3 of us came together and we set up Roosevelt. We call ourselves second generation agencies because before then we were the Ogilvy, the Lintas, Grant Advertising, and so on. So we set up a small shop in Souq, and it grew beyond our own imagination. From Roosevelt, we set up a second line agency called McCann, STB McCann. Got affiliated to a company in America, McCann Erickson. So that was how it all went on. Now, I didn't do banking and I didn't work as a banker. The interesting story is that one day, while still at Roosevelt, no, STB McCann then, I got a phone call from somebody I've never met before. And I picked up the call. He said, my name is ABC, blah, blah, blah. And he said, the managing director of Zenith Bank wants to talk to me. So I said, no, there's no problem. I know I'm not owing any bank and all that. He said, no. He just wants to talk to you. So I picked up, he picked up the line and said, my name is this. And I said, my name is this. He said, can we meet? So I said, she, no problem. He said, no. So we agreed to meet. And it got to be that he wanted to appoint a couple of directors for the bank before they went public. And what I said to him was, I'm not a banker. I didn't study finance or economics. He said, no. What I want from you is your name and your integrity. Nothing beyond that. That was the beginning of the story. So I got onto the board, and I learned a lot. You know, I'm somebody who doesn't get to a place and I want to show them what I know or what I don't know. You could make a fool of yourself sometimes. So for me, like the first 6 months or 1 year, was just go to the meeting, listen to them, know where they are coming from, know what the focus is, and know what the expectations are. So I picked it up from there. Gradually, I got into the system. Of course, naturally, buy some books on banking, finance, just read, you know, so at least you know how the banks are operating. I've always been a customer of the banks in a very small scale. And all I did was follow the banking trend. You know, there weren't too many banks in Nigeria at that point in time, but I followed through. And that was it. I got onto the board. And somewhere along the line, there was a policy of the central bank. The managing director had to step aside, so to say. The chairman had overspent some time regulated by the CBN. And they approached me and said, you are going to become, at the board, you're going to become the chairman of the board. I said, me? And they said, yes. I've met a lot of people here, so why me anyway? To cut the short story long, I was eventually made the chairman of Zenith Bank. And I was there, I was chairman for 4 years. And then CBN rules changed again. The MD came back, and I was very happy to hand over the bank to him. And I said I was going to leave when he came back. He said no. Statutorily, as he had 2 more years on the board, that no, you got to stay and live out your time. And then, so I did. And after 12 years, I eventually bowed out from the bank and returned full time to my own job, which I've been known for, and that is the media world. Okay, so I get invited for interviews, for programs here and there. Like you said, it's always a good thing. You have something you have learned over the years, you want to impact it on the younger ones, who are coming. I mean, my first son, for instance, went through the media scene, now in advertising, and I go on encouraging them. I retired from active day-to-day operations about almost 15 years ago. But I'm still keeping pace with what is going on around me. yeah, I mean, the society itself is very dynamic. There's been a lot of changes over time. I mean, I look back to during my own time in the newspaper world, and I can count just about 4 or 5 newspapers then. Okay, Morning Post, Daily Times, The Express, and a couple of others. So we knew each other, we knew the practice, we exchanged news information, we exchanged, I mean, if you had a news that was breaking, you know, you want to call up colleagues from other papers, we all go there as a team, right? Because stories will be written from different angles, no matter what you do, you know. So newspaper was great. And it was so good. In the morning, your byline was there, and people were trying to reach you, you know, about the quality. Quality was good. Quality was good. And there wasn't too much of freelancing in those days, the newspaper world. So you were either fully employed or you didn't belong. Same thing for radio. I mean, for instance, television I didn't do much about. While in journalism and in newspaper world, I was writing for radio, okay? Interesting stories. I had, there was a name to this program, the Oddities, Odd World. So we were picking up things that were odd. People that didn't imagine what they were. It's not something that was very common. So we went on doing that. So newspapers were growing, radio was growing, television was growing, and out-of-home media was also growing. And talk about the dynamism of the system. Suddenly, people were now going out of buying a newspaper every day to sit down and hold it in front of you, trying to read from beginning, from cover to cover. Other forms of communication came on. With the advent of mobile phones, things began to change. In our own time, it was the phone you put on the desk and you were dialing in, you know. A lot of the time, you could never get across, okay? Suddenly, mobile phone came onto the scene. And news coverage was transformed completely from what it used to be, okay? So now, people on their phone could reach out, you could touch Germany, touch America, touch all parts of Europe, just sitting down in your office to gather information, gather news, what is new, you know? And then, of course, we now had more television stations, no longer NTA alone, okay? Now, with the new stations, things were just expanding. Things were broadening up, and news gathering became something new altogether, and everybody was heading for a new phenomenon altogether. So today, you don't have to be a big guy to be able to tell your stories. Little children tell their stories, females tell their stories, you know. So really we have moved from the days of waiting to read your newspaper to gather your news. Now, with your phone on your palm, you could do wonders all over. But of course, standard also, in some areas, standard will improve. In some areas, standards will go down. Because the multiplicity of media sources create problems. The kind of quality control we used to have in those days was disappearing. And people can build up stories without even being there to know if it is factual or not. So of course, the turmoil that we are going through in the media space now is better imagined. But I still believe that for those who have structures like the one you are building up now, will enable people to know that you've got to check, you've got to cross-check, okay? We have laws that control what we say, what you do, what you publish. Of course, they are not as rigid as they should be, So in terms of content these days, you have to ensure that you check your facts so before you can believe, what they are saying or make any sense out of them. So really it has become all commerce affair. And this is not going to be the end. The explosion is going to continue. Maybe in a few years to come, we're going to have a stronger media control than what we have now. People are building content. You go on YouTube, you go on all kinds of media, and you are getting all kinds. What you hear from your WhatsApp is different from what you're going to get in your YouTube. You go to Instagram. People are selling themselves with all kinds of stories. So really, for me, we've gone through the era of sanity. Yeah? And I hate to say, we've gone into the era where anything you can think of, say it, write it, do it. And for the consumers, it's like you either take it or you leave it. But it's good that we can now reach out much, much widely. Thanks to our mobile news. You talk to people in any village in Nigeria, and suddenly one thing that didn't grab us so early was you open up your Google map, and you don't have to stop people on the street anymore. Show me where I'm going. Just go to the app, and it leads you to the front of the house you are going to. So we have a lot of improvements, and I think it's going to be improving some more. All we just need to watch is to ensure that we remain truthful and we remain factual, so that we don't mislead people on the street, particularly people in the rural areas. One day you just see everybody running helter-skelter because somebody posted in news that is not correct. So we need to watch that and put some more control. But I like the growth in the media space. When I got into the banking sector, I saw myself more as a customer than a board member. I haven't been a journalist, which I still am. I wrote so much about what consumers or customers were going through in the banks. It was the period of tally number, Remember this commercial, where somebody carried a mat. I said, what are you carrying a mat in the bank? I want to lay down here because I know before I get my money, I will have slept once or twice and woken up, So I was very consumer oriented. When I got into the banking system, a couple of times, my board members will ask me, are you on the board or you are still a customer? I said, first and foremost, I want to remain a customer of the bank. Who will come into the bank and get properly served? Who will come into the bank and feel like human? Who will come into the bank feel important? Because it's your money in the bank. Even if it's only 1,000 naira, it's your money. You need to be treated with some dignity and respect. And that was my mentality that I took to the board of the bank. I said, listen, I am not too happy the way customers are treated. It is their money, no matter how small. Treat them with respect, treat them with dignity. So they started listening to me after some time. And I said, customer service is extremely important. In those good old days, you will hardly hear about customer service in any of the major banks. It wasn't there. But gradually, people started being important. It was more of retail. I mean, yeah, you can deal with the big corporate organizations, but at the same time, it is these poor students, poor market women, you know, people who are out there on the street laboring hard to bring their money. So that was one area I was extremely happy that we developed that area of retail banking and being able to make the consumer the king. Okay? So that was part of it. Then, of course, I said to the bank, I said to them, fine, it is very good to make huge profits, okay? But at the same time, the customers that come in here and from their money we make our profits, let us also consider the kind of interest they get from their deposits. Today, when the banks take your money to deposit, okay? No. When you go to the bank and say, I need assistance, I need a loan, and you tell them, give them all the facts and figures, okay? They will tell you, you are going to pay interest of 20%, 23%. When they take your money to put in the bank, they give you an interest of 2%, 3%, 4%. And I just couldn't live with it. I mean, if you are giving me a loan, you're charging me so much. When I put my money there, it's also a loan to you. Why will you leave me with 2 or 3%? And I thought the system wasn't quite right. It was too skewed towards the bank than the customer. So I met a lot of pushbacks, in that area. And I must still say, it's an area I think government should still be interested in. In the civilized world, interest rate hovers between 3%, 5%. In Nigeria, it goes as far as. Maybe in Africa, not just Nigeria. I know we are developing, but at the same time, let's develop together. For both those that we are taking in their money and for those we are giving money to, so that there is some level of balance. So I really worked hard in that area. I may not have fully succeeded. Then I think finally, one other thing that I think I was able to do at the bank is our staff also requires some upliftment. And certainly banks started, employing senior people. They started moving people up. They look more at the system now than just ownership. So generally, of course, more banks have come into the scene. A lot of new banks. So people can spread out and salaries started going up for bankers. and all that. But of course, requirements were also extremely high. So generally, I think today we have a much stronger banking system, and we are still going. Now, the banks for a long time have been let loose to do whatever they want to do at the disadvantage of customers, like I started off with. Now, our leaders, and when I say leaders, let me point on just our presidents. The system was such that our presidents could do anything they like with the banks. It was almost an extension of the State House. You just pick up your bell and you ring, and the governor of Central Bank will come shaking it, because you had the power to bring him in and fire him. So he had to respect everything that the president wants. And it's wrong. This time around, I can say, even in some parts of Africa, you couldn't run the central bank the way we run it here. All the CBN governors wanted to do, please the president, and you are free to do whatever you want to do, and it's wrong. It's wrong. I mean, take even Britain here. Have you ever heard this kind of relationship between the Prime Minister of England and the CBN? No. Everybody has his mandate. In places, in climes like that, the president doesn't call up the central bank governor. Go and do this. Go and do that. Exchange rate should be done. Change your policy to be done. I mean, that's part of the problem we've had in this country. So the last government and their CBN just ran this country to their whims and caprices. You leave your monetary policy. In fact, you were running both monetary and fiscal at the same time. You took the Minister for Finance, for instance, and you have no dealings with him or her. You ran their own programs for them, and you did things that they should do, but they couldn't query you because the president, had your back. So a lot of things went wrong. And the result is now here for all of us to see. So look at the changing of our redesign, what they call redesigning of the currency. Now we know there are so many ways you should have done it. But we put politics and added it into our financial and monetary policies. We wanted to do it specifically to change the course of history. And it is wrong. So today, we now know what's happening at the central bank. In fact, if the true story of what went on in the last 8 years was told, I don't know what will be left of this country. You had this little thing in the Constitution that said the government can borrow from the CBN within certain limits. They call it ways and means. But no. And there was a percentage tied to it. You can't do more than 5%. And by the time you're asking for the new one, you should have paid up. we went on piling up, piling up, piling up. It's like just go and print the money. You know what Idi Amin used to do in Uganda in those days. That's the kind of situation we found ourselves. Very regrettable. But I believe some sanity will now come into this space. The new central bank has at least outlined its policies. It has also said, let me keep to my monetary policy, which is my area, and leave the paperwork and how they want to run it. People deal with the fiscal area. So we want to change. We think things should change. Now, before now, we borrowed and borrowed without thinking about how are we going to pay? Who are we leaving this debt for? Now we know it's for you and me to still do our work, put in as much money as we can, no matter how little, into the bank, and revive the banking industry. Okay, so the CBN has its own role, and my prayer and my wish is that they will keep their own part of the bargain, leave other people. The Minister for Finance has said it that much. We should. We all know, simple economics. You don't borrow money to pay your debt. You borrow money for production. You borrow money to fix things like your oil maintenance and all that. Where our money should be coming from. That's what you borrow money for. You don't borrow money for wastages. You don't borrow money to satisfy your whims and caprices. You don't borrow money to just go out there and waste it. Now, you borrow money to pay back your debt. At the end of the day, we are back lower than where we started off from. So really, my appeal to both the president and his cabinet, particularly those that do with finance, give them some room. You put them there because you think they know what they're supposed to do. Give them the space. If it goes breathing down their neck, at some point, it will just be, president said so, president said, even things that the president did not say, president said so, and it's got to be done. And we are running a country, even when you run your home, you are able to sit down with your little income and plan. Every day we are being told, if you earn this much, use this little bit, keep the rest in the bank, because you never know about tomorrow. So that's where we found ourselves, and I believe that if everything goes right, we should see massive changes from what it was, the last 8 years. We need drastic changes in the system. My mom in Abalinde used to say to me, when I want to be lazy, he will make sure you do what she wants you to do. And he will remind you that hard work doesn't kill. It is laziness that turns you into an inconsequential human being with no sense of direction. We grew up learning hard work, both in school and out of school. I, for instance, hawked on the streets of Lagos with my mom. You leave St. Gregory's College, now not primary school, St. Gregory's College. You come back. My mother was a textile seller. Got it, probably went to Balogun, pick up. When I come back from school after my lunch, get a basket full of cloth, which I put on my head. and we go from street to street. My mother is carrying her tape rule and another measurement stick, and we'll go round Obalende, Igboshere, Bamboshe, Oshoji, and we were selling. From there, she graduated to owning a shop in Balogun. When I leave school, I was her accountant, so to say, bookkeeper. All the things they sold and make, keep the records and everything. I helped her take the money to the bank. It was Barclays Bank, what was it called then? Yeah, Barclays Bank, before it became Union Bank in Balogun. So I've learned how to trade. I've learned how to make money. I've learned how to deal with customers. Plus that, I was also a bread seller. Somewhere along Strachan Street off Igboshere, there was a big bakery owned by the Lawson family. To be able to get enough bread, you got to get there between 5 and 6 in the morning. Okay? So let me cut it short. We learned to work hard. And that working hard continued with us up till where we are today. We also were very straight-minded in terms of what we wanted to be. We played pranks, so we went out to play football, we went out to play with the girls and everything. But at the end of the day, you returned home. And our parents didn't spare the rod. They didn't. You came back later than expected to. They would lie you on the floor and dealt with you. So the combination of the kind of upbringing and the kind of training we went through home probably kept us where we are. And like I said to you before we started the interview, you knew that if you finish your primary school, secondary school is the next thing. If you finish secondary school, you don't know what you were reading for. Not until probably when you got to the university did it occur to you, okay, I got to choose a profession. But all along, we just did it because that was what the system and the environment asked for. So, secret of success, hard work, hard work, hard work. No. I had a father who was very finicky about appearance. When I lived on Igboshere Road, our church was on Louis Street, so to say, walking distance. He taught me how to wear full agbada right from primary school, secondary school. I mean, today, you just wear buba and shokoto, you go to church. Never was that happening. It's got to be full. Right. Then from there, by the time you got into, my father died while I was in university. Before then, he was always having this very thin bow tie, not this bigger one, bigger sizes now. Thin, even when his dress is khaki, he still had it on. So I admired him, but initially I was on my long time, up till a point, and I look back at some photographs we took when we were in the secondary school, and I thought, no, let me go back to those old days. Some people tell me it makes you look old. I said, I don't mind, but these days I have just acquired that fashion taste, which has suddenly become my, what do you call it? Become what I'm known with, and I enjoy it. and I encourage people, once in a while, put on your bow tie. It makes you look good, makes you look impressionable, it makes you look a serious person, and it makes people take a second look at you. I think, number one, parents started sparing the rod. Call it civilization, call it growing up and all that. Parents started sparing the rod because they always whipped us to shape. You knew what was expected of you, and you did it. Because if you didn't do it, your punishment is waiting for you. But as we grew up, you probably will ask me today, do I use the rod for my children, for instance? And the answer is no. And why it is no is that these days the children look up to you. They are more exposed than what we were. More exposed. They know what daddy does. If you show them a bad example, they will repeat that bad example. If they know that when daddy wakes up in the morning, before he goes anywhere, he needs time to say his prayers. They too unconsciously will copy you. If they know that when dad goes out, he comes back certain time. It doesn't come in at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Subconsciously, they too will know there's something that this old man sees that doesn't make him go out all night. So they copy from us. But then, like people say, I don't know how correct it is, that these days people are so busy looking for money. They're all over the place. They abandon the home to nannies and housemates and all that. And the children a lot of the time are on their own. But people like you and I, for instance, probably had housemates in the house. You see, but the work that the housemaid does, we were also made to do it. Right? Washing our plates. Staying in the kitchen to see how things are prepared. They took us through it, even if you didn't have to do it yourself. And that's why you and I are what we are today. But for the modern young families, most so if there's some money to back it up, no, the children don't touch a lot of housework in the homes. They can go out anytime they like. They can wear, you see some little young girls and what they wear. In fact, even to the church, you want to ask yourself, aren't their parents go to see what the children are wearing? Particularly the female. Even the guys wearing what they, think they don't use the belt, the trouser would just be somewhere on their hips and all that. Yeah, we want them to express themselves, but within control. So, wrapping up on that, I'm going to say, yes, we grew up under stronger control. Today's parents are so much in love with their children. They don't want to make them unhappy. You don't want to, pick up a stick and hit them. But I don't quarrel with that. But please be there for them when they need you. And don't be scared to talk to your parents. To talk to your children. No. We should never be scared to talk to them. Because they're not going to take us over. They are our children. So what you don't want them to do, Communication, extremely important. Talk to them. Let them, because peer pressure is extremely strong out there. You know, they're mixing with so many guys from much even richer homes who have more to spoil their children with. Now you are a moderate family, your moderate children have to mix and relate and go out with guys with stronger economic background. There is, there is some disconnect there. Let's bring our children closer. Let's talk to them. A lot of parents don't talk to their children, and it's not right, because the more you talk to them, the more they have that empathy for you. They know you care for them. They know you, because you have been moderately successful, for instance, they too want to be successful like you are, and all you are saying to them, follow my footsteps and you may not go wrong. And don't make wealth, money, the thing that should govern your homes. Don't spoil the children. Give them adequately what we all need to survive, and they will survive. In those days, while all you needed to take to school was 1 shilling, okay? You still see children from rich homes who came with £1 and stuff like that. But let's be contented. Let's teach the children to be contented with what we have. Families are growing, society is expanding, and we can reach out to any part of the world. Now, we need to bring them closer to the home. At least up till the time that they are leaving you to go and start up there. But as long as they're still within your influence, it's very important that children and their families come much, much stronger together. I'm going to start with sports. I was an avid squash player. Okay, back in school, a bit of football, a bit of tennis, and other. But when I started growing up seriously, I loved squash. And I played squash until I was over 50. Okay, and the doctor said, slow down on squash. So today, I do my swimming. Okay, I still do my swimming 2-3 times a week. Okay, and then of course I walk. There's this thing that keeps on saying, if all you can do is walk for 30-40 minutes a day. Okay, and then of course I'm an avid fan of football up to today. I wish we could develop a local league so that I could slow down on my European Premier League sessions. So I love football and I love lawn tennis up to now. Now, favorite color, subdued. Okay. Hot colors frighten me. Okay. And if you have to do it, just make it minimal. When I pick my dress, for instance, you got to know you want the kind of shirt you want to wear to match the color of the tie you want to use, to match the color of your suit, so it doesn't run riot. So it's extremely important. And I say to my friends, just Google it. What color matches this and what color matches that? So you don't become like a Christmas tree on the road. That was the third one, food. I grew up enjoying my eba and amala. Growing up from Obalinde, Okay? So I do my eba, I do my amala. Rice occasionally. But then these days, from age 70 upwards, oh, the doctors are screaming, watch what you eat, what the quantity you eat. So my wife draws up a weekly timetable. Monday is this, Tuesday is that, Wednesday is that, and she manages to mix up a slightly heavy one and a slightly lighter one so that you have a good mix. With age, you cut down on a lot of things. Cut down on your booze, cut down on your champagne, you cut down on your wine, you cut down on your salt. In fact, it's like they're punishing us. But then they say that is the way to go to be able to at least live longer and enjoy more of life.
In 1957, just a greenhorn, leaving school and looking for a job, going into broadcasting was something that I dreamt of. But that's only meant going into radio, because my old school, Holy Child College, still on the same site in Obalende, 2 streets away from the old NBC. I still can't forgive whoever changed the name to something else that is being called now FRCN. Because if the BBC remains BBC 100 years after the founding fathers, dreamt of starting television, radio from, all the war years and learning a bit from America. It all started from America. Because we were taught about all this. Every time they took us from school to take part in, schools debates on radio, we just walked across. It's all in Obalende and Ikoyi, Balende/Ikoyi. So I dreamt of doing something along the line. And then one of my teachers left us high and dry. He went to be a newsreader on radio. Marie Tabio, who later became Mrs. Irikefe. Then we had people like Tung Adedoyin and Souq. We used to listen to them on radio on the old, you wouldn't know anything about that now, the rediffusion. It was just, a little box in your home. And everybody looked forward to either listening to the 7 o'clock news in the morning or 6 o'clock or 7 in the evening. So that was all really all I had to do with broadcasting. And who was going to take me there was another matter altogether. Who would take you, little 16, 17-year-old girl, into broadcasting? But one had been bitten by the bug then. So, and only God knows where whatever dream you had was going to lead to. We read poetry, we did radio show, stage shows in school. Catholic schools were very good for that. And my old school, just celebrating 150 years of its existence, just down the road from here on Broad Street. The nuns, they were all white nuns. No Nigerian nuns at the time that we were growing up. So all the dream they had, this kind of dream that we have now, going to England, but they were coming here to teach us. So I had learnt a lot of poetry. I had taken part in Festival of Arts. and I had gone to the biggest hall we had then was at King's College, which is also down the road. Means of transportation was your SS foot. No BRT, no bicycles or whatever. So we did it all just walking around and learning from our teachers. And of course, our mentors were the nuns, like I said. So in my wildest dream, there was no way that I was thinking of going into anything like broadcasting. That is going back to answer your question. But they had a lot of plans for the girl child. And not along the religious lines now. But actually, they came to actually engender this whole idea of pushing the girl child forward. And not just me, a lot of us. People like Mrs. Francesca Emanuel, they also went through the whole gamut of all this dream that I'm talking about. Television itself was brand new in the world. I have to talk about radio because that was what I knew as a child. But television, when it started, we didn't even know. Maybe in America, and then it went to Australia, and then to France. No. France came after Nigeria. You wouldn't believe that, would you? That we were number 6. America, Britain, Germany, Australia, one other country, and coming now home to Nigeria, where you cannot help but give a lot of credit to the dreams of people like the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo and one of his ministers then, Chief Anthony Enahoro. So that's how I believe this whole package was placed on their laps and sold to Nigeria, to the Western Nigeria government. On the radar were lots of other people like me who had dreams about becoming Miss Nigeria. So maybe that will now give you a little background about how I took part in the Miss Nigeria pageant, Western Nigeria, and I became Miss Western Nigeria. Somebody must have fine-tuned some little knots somewhere and said, okay, you probably might be able to deliver. Because you are being interviewed when you go before the panel of judges. And somebody must have said, okay, that's a good material, she can come and take part in this. Before then, we had other people, Anike Agbaje Williams, Poliola Sokwe, who were working on radio. My dream was to work in radio, but then I missed that. And I was nursing, that dream of still going to radio. Never knew what television was all about. So maybe that answers your question, I'm not sure. But I took part in the Miss Western Nigeria pageant and I won. Took part in the Miss Nigeria contest and came second. So that meant that I didn't win. And if one of the, maybe the prize was to go on TV, it wasn't even there. It wasn't written into the, program that whoever did this, but the person was going to go to England. And so Helena Yemeluna, who won that contest, went to London and fulfilled her own dream. But I was still biting my nails, waiting for when I'll be able to get a job. There were other things that girls could do. You could be a nurse, you could be a teacher, you could be an assistant, a dental assistant. All those were things that young ladies, can, fulfill their dreams along those lines. They're still there. You still have young ladies. Mrs. Muritala Mohammed, the first time I met her, she was a dental assistant. Little did we know that her husband was going to be the head of state and she would be first. So you see, lots of things were there for the young girl who wanted to learn, who had the talent and who wanted to perform and who wanted to work hard. But now I don't know if girls want to work hard. All they want is, the table to be set, and then they come and, partake of whatever is there. It wasn't too difficult at the time that I was picked as one of the people to come and appear in WNTV. The audition was actually carried out before my time. I got involved in so many other things, trying to get a job, something to secure, something, to alleviate poverty. There was not too much poverty in Nigeria at the time because people could still eke a living for themselves and, get by in society. But I was lucky that I had an aunt who was a nurse in the hospital in Ibadan, UCH in Ibadan. And she was married to an Englishman, and the man's friend happened to have been the man, Mr. Mathers, who was brought as one of the technical partners to WNTV. So we met at a dinner party, and just as you and I are chatting, I was only 18 plus. I was 17 when I took part in the pageant. But by this time, I was growing up, and I thought I was a big girl. So I opened my mouth, and I said a few things. And the man looked at me and said, "How come you are not speaking with a Nigerian accent?" And I didn't know what he meant, because we were taught at St. Mary's to deliver whatever lines we were given to deliver. The Festival of Arts, I came second after an English boy from Corona School. And I was given a beating for coming second. Not because I didn't perform well, but because I forgot to curtsy. And one of the judges, I think, who was then Mrs. Abayomi, Lady Abayomi, said that I delivered my lines very well. If I were the Lord of Tartary, I would do this and that and the other. So I came second. And when I got back to the school, the nun, Sister Marieta, said, "You were not paying attention." So whatever you do in life, you have to be consistent. You have to perform well. The way we're trying to do now, the way we're trying to project your voice and whatever it is you have to offer with a lot of humility, not, trying to show off or to project your own image, or whatever message you have to deliver, you have to make sure that it is well delivered. The following year, St. Mary's Convent School, which is my old school, which is 150 years old in existence, went to the same King's College Hall, and we beat a lot of secondary schools. We came first. Pied Piper of Hamelin. Have you ever heard of that poetry? Pied Piper of Hamelin was about someone who wanted to get rid of all the rats in Europe. And all he did was to play the pipe. So that is what we were more or less doing. That's what you and I have felt. Being a Pied Piper, trying to get off all the ills in society. That's the main job of a broadcaster. There's so many things happening in the country, and it's only TV and radio that binds the country together. If the country falls apart tomorrow, we will rely on someone from radio or from television to make the announcement, to introduce the head of state who has just won the election, or the one who has just taken over. It's a huge responsibility. At that age, at 19, we had to introduce people like Chief Obafemi Awolowo on TV. We had to introduce people like Akintola, Oladoke Akintola, as the premier. And when everything broke down and it all went into smithereens, they brought in Chief Majekodumi as the administrator of the Western region. All this happening before our eyes. There were no other stations in the country except WNTV. And we were there, so we learned quite a lot. In fact, I believe that the whole country revolves around broadcasting. And if you are part of that organization, how would you feel at my age, at 80-something? As young people, perhaps you don't know all this history that I'm telling you about. It's a long, long story. But when you sit down, you have to put it all into perspective, you see that, well, some people are actually meant to be in different positions. Some people are meant to be doctors. Some people are meant to be nurses. For those of us that are in broadcasting, it's a huge responsibility. It's a passion. Something. Sometimes you don't even know how you got there in the first place. Or somebody may have discovered you. It's like being in Hollywood in those days. Someone has to develop. So you have the talent, the latent talent, and then somebody will discover you. So that's how I was discovered by Mr. Mathers at a dinner. I was put in that place because I had won the Miss Western Nigeria contest. If I hadn't done that, I probably would be somewhere in the kitchen washing plates, washing all the dishes. So there you are, if that answers your question. Well, there's no one that actually picks someone and puts you plonk without, I mean, of course, if you don't have any experience on the job, you have no business being there in the first place. But if I had taken part in Pied of Hamelin Towns in Brunswick, I was only 13. By famous Hanover City, I was speaking like an English person. When I was only a Nigerian, little girl, being nurtured, by my mother, who was a seamstress, how would you ever get there? But you already have